Hello and good day. My name is Nick Wagner. I'm a Senior Director of Product Management at Oracle, focusing on the Oracle GoldenGate product. I've been working on database replication products since the late 90s, and I started with GoldenGate all the way back in 2003. The MAA team. I've even spent a few years in the cloud world. So hopefully this gives you enough information that I'm kind of a trusted source here. So to start, let's do a little bit of background on GoldenGate. GoldenGate's been around for a very long time and is extremely mature. GoldenGate was actually built to replicate transactions from ATM machines and move that data to relational databases. The kind of core fundamentals of GoldenGate is ensuring database replication resiliency, data consistency, and flexibility. And these have been our guiding principles for the product for over the last 30 years. With GoldenGate 23ai, we've got to focus on a number of key different areas. And during this presentation, I'll go into some detail on the new features related to AI in Oracle GoldenGate. And I'll also touch on a couple new big features like the microservices changes, improvements in monitoring with StatsD integration with Telegraf, and something a lot of customers have been asking for, especially those running in AWS or Azure, is built-in high availability for GoldenGate itself without any shared storage requirements or database requirements. And then we've also got a little bit of GoldenGate for zero ETL support as well, allowing you to quickly copy tables from one system to another. GoldenGate's been doing this type of thing for years and years, and so it just makes sense to kind of automate that process for you. This release is also special as it marks the end of the classic architecture. Classic architecture has been desupported, and so the Oracle GoldenGate 23ai release is microservices based only. So what does that really mean? The Oracle GoldenGate Microservices, that component itself is very mature. It's now been around for over 8 years. It was originally released as part of GoldenGate 12c. We've been adding different databases and builds over time to it and a lot of functionality. But when I say microservices, that's kind of an overloaded term. What does it really mean? Here, it means that the individual GoldenGate services are now microservices or are independent services, but it's still the same extract, the same replica processes that you've been using for years. Nothing's changed there. It's also the same trail files, the same trail file formatting. All that's the same too. What we've done is we've added a really nice browser-based interface on top of it. All you need to do is simply bring up your browser of choice in the URL bar, enter the server where GoldenGate is running, whether it's an IP address or a host name, and then the port that that GoldenGate environment is running on. Once you do that, you'll see a nice login screen where you can put in your username and password and get authenticated into the environment. And now you can control and administer GoldenGate all from a browser. It's wizard driven too, which makes it really nice. And the browser is mobile friendly, so you can use on your phone, your tablet, laptop, whatever. The GoldenGate microservices architecture is also kind of multi-tenant, so to speak. And so what that means is that with the classic architecture, customers would install multiple GoldenGate homes or multiple GoldenGate installations on the same server. Each one might be for a different use case or a different project. With the microservices, now it's a little bit different. So you can install one GoldenGate home, and then you have multiple deployments or PDBs, so to speak. And each of these deployments is a fully self-contained GoldenGate environment. It has its own users, it has its own authentication, it has its own extracts and replicats, trail files, report files, everything. But you can have multiple of these. So if you have different applications, you can still split out the work across multiple users. Uh, each deployment can also be kind of shut down and started up on their own as well. And then we have a very nice wizard that allows you to create multiple deployments and change them too, which is kind of cool. When you go to upgrade GoldenGate, if you're using the multi-services model, you simply shut your environments down and then you upgrade to one GoldenGate home and then you start them back up and you're all good to go. So it makes patching GoldenGate a lot easier. No longer do you have to patch multiple GoldenGate environments. And then you also don't have to worry about whether a patch has been applied to a different GoldenGate environment or not. Also with the microservices architecture, it's not just browser-based. If you prefer a command line, and I'm kind of old school, so I do, we've just renamed the GGSCI as the admin client. So it's still got all the GGSCI commands. A lot of your scripts will still work just as normal, but it's a little bit better. It now uses and allows remote connections, and uses authentication. So when I start up the admin client, the first thing I'll do is I'll log into a GoldenGate deployment, and then I can start making commands on that deployment. So I can use the admin client from my laptop and control a deployment running within OCI Marketplace or running in a different server in a different data center. Think of it as kind of SQL Plus, but for GoldenGate. And then it also allows for scripting and obey files just like GGSCI does. In fact, there's even a full REST API included with the microservices architecture. So you can even build your own GoldenGate interface or set up automation and configuration of GoldenGate for your users, depending on how you want to build it at your company. Now, one thing that is very important, this is the kind of the classic architecture is completely de-supported in this build. So GoldenGate 21c was the last version that supported the classic architecture. So it's no longer functioning. This has kind of some important implications as you upgrade. Um, but before we do that, let's kind of take a step back and look at the support timeline for 23ai. So just like Oracle 23ai, GoldenGate 23ai is also a long-term release. And so it's going to have the standard long-term release support policy, which is 5+3. 5 years of premier support, followed by 3 years of extended support. And so as this timeline shows, we will be supporting and providing patches for GoldenGate 23ai all the way until 2032. You'll also notice a couple other things about this screen. With the items in yellow, we've provided a support waiver for extended support itself. Normally, you would have to pay an additional fee in order to get extended support. However, we want to give customers time to upgrade to OGG23ai, so we've waived that fee that is normally required for extended support. And that's been done until April of 2025. So you really have a good year or so to upgrade to OGG23ai. This is especially important if you're on the short-term release or innovation release of GoldenGate 21c. Not as important if you're on 19c. If you're on 19c, it'll continue to be supported until April of 2027. So you've still got quite a few years. Again, because the classic architecture is no longer supported, and in fact, it's no longer even shipped as part of the 23ai builds, this upgrade is going to be a little bit more involved than the previous one. So I really want to stress that it's important to begin your testing and migration process early to avoid any last minute issues. Now, to get into some of the actual features, we have added a ton of functionality in GoldenGate 23ai, way more than what I can cover in this presentation, but to kind of help make sense of it, let's split the chart into sections. First, let's just look at the AI features, and we'll be covering these in more detail in a few slides. GoldenGate now supports the Oracle 23ai vectors and allows for full replication of them. We've added the ability to do database function mapping directly from the Replicat 2. So no more going into doing SQL execs to call those functions. You can now call it directly from your parameter files and your map files. And then we also have vector replication itself and a bunch of new features in Oracle Database 23ai. With Oracle 23ai, there's even more. We've created database roles just for GoldenGate inside the database. We've also added the ability to support the JSON duality features. So whether you're storing JSON as relational tables or as regular JSON documents or vice versa, that's all seamlessly integrated into GoldenGate and can be replicated. We also allow for capture from a pluggable database directly. So if you want to set up your extract to capture from a pluggable database and exclude all the other pluggable databases there, that's done very easily now. A big one is for customers using EBR, or what's called addition-based redefinition with GoldenGate, or really any kind of product that uses supplemental logging. When you have supplemental logging on tables, even if you're using EBR and Oracle 21c and earlier, DDL operations require an exclusive lock on the table. And so with Oracle 23ai, this has been reduced to row-level locks. And so a lot of times now you can do DDL operations live, even with supplemental logging on the table. And of course, our web UI now has access to the replication performance packages within the database to give you better diagnostic capabilities directly from the web service interface itself. So there's a lot of big benefits there. But we haven't forgotten about the non-Oracle platforms either. For non-Oracle environments, we now have more than 30 new OS and database certifications for different environments that we support. We've got integration with StatsDB and even support for things like data stream async APIs. Across the board, all GoldenGate builds now have the new web browser interface and microservices, and it has been enhanced from GoldenGate 21c to be more streamlined, less clicks to get the same action or do the same work, and it is highly optimized. We've noticed we've got customers running 20, 30, 40 extracts and replicats in a single deployment, and so we've helped optimize it for those customers too. Because customers are going to be migrating to microservices as part of this release, we've enhanced not only our configuration service that helps create deployments through a wizard-based interface, but we've also got a utility that allows you to take your classic architecture and convert it into a microservices architecture. And so this service is really nice, and we expect a lot of customers to use it. All these things are really upgraded in the GoldenGate upgrade guide, where it has step-by-step information on how to convert from classic to microservices and how to upgrade to 23ai. So I spent a little bit of time talking about some of the enhancements within the user interface itself. So just going to go through a couple of screens here. The first one, this is running on a single deployment, simply called local. There's a couple processes on it. The processes are all hyperlinked, so I can click on any of them to get additional information. Within the action, I can click and make changes to these processes, start and stop them, edit them. You have immediate access to the configuration, restarting options, certificates, logs, all right here from the navigation screen, kind of making the whole thing a little bit more streamlined. This screenshot is an overview of the home page, kind of quickly showing my critical events for the processes that are running on this deployment, as well as a quick overview of those. It shows that I've got 2 extracts and 2 replicats that are running. None are in a failed or stopped or abandoned status. So it's really easy to kind of get an idea of what's going on very quickly at a glance here. And then this last screenshot shows an updated view of the checkpoint details for an integrated extract. A lot of these pages have been updated to include process statistics and parameters, even editing them. And if you look on the navigation side, you'll see a bunch of new entries, even things like viewing cache manager statistics and integrated diagnostics within each process. So it makes it troubleshooting and getting access to the data streamlined. Okay, so if you've been following GoldenGate over the years, you'll notice that we've been expanding our use cases. For those that haven't, let's talk about some of the things that GoldenGate can do. So GoldenGate can provide active-active or multi-active N-way replication. We have high availability and cross-region replication as well, providing high availability not only for the database, but helping to reduce planned and unplanned outages to your database, whether that's from eliminating downtime during database patching or even application patching. GoldenGate can also do what we call data offloading, report offloading, building a data hub. So taking data from one or more sources and moving them into a single target or multiple targets for data analytics. Being able to move that data from heterogeneous environments into other environments makes it very smooth and easy to use GoldenGate. The great thing about this is the interface for GoldenGate is all the same. So whether I'm working with GoldenGate on Sybase or GoldenGate on SQL Server or GoldenGate on Postgres or GoldenGate on Oracle, the commands to create an extract, create a replicat, set up my GoldenGate deployments is all the same. So we've really made it easy for customers to deploy GoldenGate in heterogeneous systems. Because GoldenGate can support so many different platforms like Postgres and MongoDB, SQL Server, and of course the Oracle databases, it makes it very easy to do migrations or upgrades. So whether you're doing a database upgrade, a database migration, maybe from Postgres to Oracle, or you're moving into the cloud. Let's say I want to take my on-premise Oracle database and move it into Exadata Cloud at Customer or Cloud Service. I can do that using GoldenGate, and I can do it without downtime. Another big benefit of GoldenGate is being able to pull data from SaaS applications, whether these applications are running on premises, like I'm running EBS or Siebel or PeopleSoft on premise and I want to get data from it, or if these applications are running in OCI, being able to pull data from Fusion Apps or more than a dozen different applications that GoldenGate supports that runs inside of OCI allows us to take this data out and provide it for real-time analytics. Whether that data is going to different supported platforms like Snowflake or Azure Data Lake, Google BigQuery, Databricks, depending on the target technology, GoldenGate can do this. And then, of course, we also have the ability to do streaming analytics, pulling data from a relational database and moving it into a messaging system. Alex Katopoulos has talked about this in another thread on this same forum. And he goes into much more detail on what GoldenGate Stream Analytics can do and how it can integrate with do-it-yourself stream analytics, whether it's through Kafka Flink or Spark Streaming. So lots of the same use cases, but we've also got a couple of new ones now that we've got so much support for AI. So there's a couple things here. GoldenGate can be used to enable distributed AI processing. And the reason I say this is because we can support so many different types of vector data types within these different databases. So whether you're running MySQL or you've got your vector databases in AWS, Postgres, OCI, OpenSearch, neural networks, we can all plug into them and pull data out of those and replicate it around. Again, it's just a data type, so GoldenGate can replicate those data types. This allows for either multi-active N-way replication, multi-cloud replication. We can migrate, replicate, and consolidate the data, as well as stream changes into something like Elasticsearch or OpenSearch compatible search indexes. We can also create real-time event vector hubs, which I'll get into in a couple slides as well, being able to do automatic vector enabling and create similarity search for like AI RAG solutions, or even kind of helping large language models stay up to date. And of course, through the streaming analytics, we can do actionable AI or ML directly from GoldenGate Stream Analytics itself. It has integration with Oracle Machine Learning as well as Onyx for all your AI and ML needs. When we drill down into what we're doing with distributed AI processing, there's a lot to kind of cover here. The first is we support Oracle services like Oracle Database and MySQL HeatWave. We also support a number of third-party products like Postgres, pgvector, which is an add-in for Postgres, AlloyDB, Amazon RDS, Aurora, Elasticsearch, OpenSearch. So there's a lot of partners that we work with as well to be able to certify and support their environments. Let me take a minute to really kind of talk about what it means to replicate a vector, so it makes more sense to you. Really, vectors are just kind of like numbers. What those numbers mean depend on the embedding algorithm. So if two databases uses the same algorithm and they've got the same embedding technology, we can replicate vectors between them directly, and it'll all make sense of the AI queries. However, if they're different, maybe it's the same algorithm, but a different number of dimensions, even that can change the way the vectors are stored in the databases. So in these cases, you actually want GoldenGate to replicate the actual data that's used to generate the vectors, not the vectors themselves. But this opens up some cool possibilities. You want to know how accurate your searches are using less dimensions, which can be calculated faster? Or what about more dimensions? Are your queries or your searches not accurate enough and you want to increase the dimensions within your AI utilities? You can have GoldenGate replicate the base data to another system and test it out. Run your embedding technologies over there. Use it more dimensions, less dimensions, make your changes. How does this impact your queries and your results? Also, while you're doing this, you're not impacting the production system. And if it works, great. If you get better, more accurate results, point the application at the new system and you can retire the old one. Within a cloud environment or a hyperscaler, this really becomes kind of a trivial exercise to do. So in allowing you to do real-time innovation and dynamically change the way your AI works. And through this, it allows us to do things like consolidation. It gives us the ability to do that active-active replication or even streaming changes to other engines. And just like a normal database, if I'm going to run reports on those databases, having up-to-date information is really important. The same concept is important for Gen AI as well as AI in general. We don't want to be generating responses using out-of-date information. The other day I was using one of the common AI tools out there, and every time I asked it a query, it was telling me that they don't have up-to-date information, so they can't provide the result, or it's going to be inaccurate. So that's not good. And so in many cases, the data that our AI vectors rely on is going to reside in databases, especially because databases have such a constant change of data. So what better way to get this data out of the relational databases and into the vector database than just simply use GoldenGate? This also works with RAG updates, ensuring your similarity searches are correct, or even with large language models. GoldenGate can move documents to be consumed or embedded. We can transform the data. Moving documents is pretty simple. This can be done through blob, clob, text, or other data types, depending on the database engine. But if you've got relational data in your database and your large language model requires text, what do? Well, GoldenGate can take the changes from within that source database in a relational form and output the text. It'll take your data that's stored in these relational tables and stream it out so that the embedding code can be run on it. I guess it would be best if we use an example. So a good example, let's say it's a grocery store application, and I've got an insert, and some user purchased 2 boxes of oranges and a box of strawberries. What do I do? Uh, at 4 p.m., somebody else came in and purchased 5 apples and 2 bananas. Well, GoldenGate knows what's going on that database. And using pre-formatted sentences, instead of just the inserted data, it can grab that information out. It'll return actual text saying something like, at 3:15 p.m., John purchased 2 boxes of oranges and a box of strawberries. At 4 p.m., Laura purchased 5 apples and 2 bananas. You could even have it add in extra data like what store it was purchased from, what they used to purchase the data, all sorts of information attached to that record to keep that information embedded and updated. Updates are a little bit more tricky, but GoldenGate can still do it because we can grab both the before and after images of changed columns. So let's say that we get a change where somebody updates an address field and they change it from Redwood Shores, California to Austin, Texas. Well, GoldenGate can grab that and it can say, oh, Sydney moved from Redwood Shores, California to Austin, Texas on October 2nd. And he used this method of travel to get there and all the other important data around it. We can kind of build that in. So we can help turn this change data to sentences a little bit easier so it can be consumed by our AI models. Shifting gears a bit, one of the features that's been requested by hundreds of customers over the past couple years is built-in high availability for GoldenGate itself. A lot of customers find it pretty difficult to set up DBFS, ACFS, clusterware, get all the different components running to provide high availability for GoldenGate. Because GoldenGate is built off of microservices, there's a lot of things that we can do through that REST API inside of it. And so what we've done is build this model out that allows us to create high availability for GoldenGate itself. So how does it work? It's pretty straightforward. So it uses a raft consensus model. So that means you'll need to first designate a leader environment. So to kind of break this down a little bit, I've got 3 data centers here. Each data center has 3 deployments of GoldenGate. I've got GoldenGate deployed on server 1, server 2, and server 3. Maybe this is a cloud. So I've got GoldenGate deployed in region 1, region 2, and region 3. And maybe this is a different cloud vendor. I've got GoldenGate deployed in availability domain 1, availability domain 2, and availability domain 3. Now, this is replication in a 3-way active-active environment. But if one of these GoldenGate systems fails, one of the followers will simply pick up and start replicating to the other primaries. And now it becomes a leader. And so we've got a raft consensus model to determine who's the primary and who are the followers. And it all happens under the covers. It's very smooth. Um, it supports multiple data centers. It supports single data centers, single region. In a single region, you'll just use multiple AZs or availability domains to configure the servers. Or in multiple regions, you just split it out across regions. So it's very flexible. The only requirement is that these environments run on 3 different servers. Now, how to set it up? It's pretty straightforward to set up for people using OCI GoldenGate. Once you've got your one deployment created in the leisure region, you simply do a checkbox to mark it that it's part of an HA cluster environment, and then GoldenGate will go out and build all the followers for you. And you just choose which domain they're going to run in or which region they're going to run in. It makes it super simple to set up. For customers running on premises, it's a little bit more involved because we can't automatically build environments for you. You do have to install the environments first. If I'm setting up a 3 environment situation where I've got 1 leader and 2 followers, I would install GoldenGate 3 times. And then through the web interface, you would simply define who your leader is and then who your followers are. So it's very streamlined, much easier to follow than before. The white paper is just a couple pages instead of 70. So that's a good news. There is a note here for customers that are using the traditional HA maximum availability setup and configuration for GoldenGate HA that still uses DBFS, ACFS, and clusterware. That will continue to work. So we're not taking away any functionality there. It'll work seamlessly on top of this environment. So you can use either one or both. We've got a couple other features. In addition to the StatsD integration, the browser-based UI is directly integrated into the replication package performance advisor, often called Oracle Replication Performance Advisor. For those of you that have been around a while, this used to be the Streams Performance Advisor. There's also some enhancements with AWR reports to simplify troubleshooting and help resolve support tickets faster. This includes additional details like whether GoldenGate might be misconfigured, if there's a key or missing index that's causing performance issues. Also, because these AWR reports are integrated with GoldenGate itself, it can help provide insight into whether the process is having an issue inside the database or outside the database. We've also improved the trail file management. So directly from the web interface, you can now purge trails, you can archive your trails, and it's all hooked into the checkpointing too. So if you go to purge a trail, it's not going to delete any trails that are required for GoldenGate recovery. And then we've got a couple of enhancements to security. We've now got support for Oracle Key Vault 21.4, which adds an additional encryption for the trail files themselves, allowing you to have a different encryption key for each trail file. And a lot of customers have asked for integration with third-party identity management tools or identity access tools like IDCS. It also supports Azure Active Directory now. You can use your users directly from Azure Active Directory and hook them into the GoldenGate interface. So now you can log in using your Azure Active Directory username and password into the GoldenGate environment. And then I highlighted this much earlier in the presentation, but now GoldenGate 23ai has additional integration with Oracle 23ai. And so within Oracle 23ai, you no longer need the DBMS GoldenGate auth to grant appropriate packages and things, but you can actually use the roles that are associated with that in the database. So now there's a specific role for GoldenGate capture, for apply, and things like that. So it makes it a lot easier to set up GoldenGate, especially if you're using it in a third-party cloud environment where it's managed. And I've really just taken the time to highlight just a couple of small features. Again, there's hundreds of new features that we've added with GoldenGate 23ai. So many that I just didn't even have time to even get into them. So I wanted to thank everybody very much for attending and have a great rest of your day. Thank you very much.